The G20 Foreign Ministers meeting is taking place from 1st and 2nd March in New Delhi under India's presidency. Representatives of 40 countries, including non-G20 members, multilateral organizations are invited by India. During the two-day event, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and several dignitaries are scheduled to share their perspective on emerging global challenges and international matters. To discuss on this in detail, we are joined by Ashok Malik, former Policy Advisor, Ministry of External Affairs. Welcome to the program, Mr. Malik.
Thank you.
Mr. Malik, to begin the discussion, I would like to know what significance the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting hold under India's presidency.
G20 was born in 2008 following the global financial crisis as a gathering of the 20 biggest economies on the planet. In that sense, the first G20 presidency under India and the meeting of the G20 Foreign Ministers in India is the biggest such gathering in India's diplomatic history. There have been moments in the past and more than 20 foreign ministers have been in India, certainly, but foreign ministers of 20 most powerful economies of the world representing such an important share of global GDP to be here at any one given time is certainly a big event. It is perhaps the biggest such gathering in that sense in India.
So, if I'm not wrong, there's one theme in the foreign ministers meeting is that strengthening multilateralism and the need for reforms. I want to understand from you how firmly India could lead the nations to find a possible ground and solution in this.
Look, I don't think you'll find a solution immediately at this meeting itself, but obviously the world has to work towards the multilateral order. The multilateral institutions that have governed us for so many years were born after the Second World War in 1945, the UN system, and got a certain fillip in 1990 after the Cold War with the creation of institutions such as the World Trade Organization and more recently G20 itself. It has been found in recent times that many of these institutions are perhaps past their sell-by date and need to be upgraded. They need to be upgraded in terms of membership. The UN Security Council has 5 permanent members. 4 of them are from the West. 3 of them are from the West. 3 of them are from Europe. Only 1 is from Asia. A country like India doesn't qualify. There's no African representative. So certainly the membership of these agencies and these bodies needs to be upgraded. Second, even thematically, in terms of issues they tackle, these institutions have been found wanting. The UN Security Council is meant to debate and concern itself with issues related to global security. It seems to define security in terms of traditional warfare, invasion, missiles, bombs, guns, and bullets. In 2020, when the COVID crisis hit the entire planet, and there's certainly a huge security risk, an economic, humanitarian, and even political security risk. The UN Security Council did not deem it fit to discuss the COVID crisis because it could not agree that this was a security challenge, and its definition of security was ossified, it was frozen in time. So obviously, both in terms of membership and thematically, the multilateral system needs to be updated and reformed. And this is a demand India has been making for some time. Everybody agrees that the multilateral system needs to be reformed and upgraded, but nobody is clear on how this should be done. There's no consensus.
And here I would like to mention what Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra said in the press briefing before the meeting today. He said that given the developing situation of Russia and Ukraine, naturally it will be an important point of discussion during foreign ministers meeting. By focusing on the Russia-Ukraine situation, it will be important to know what they come out with and what understanding is developed. I want to know what's your take on this, Mr. Malik.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which in the words of the Prime Minister is really regrettable because this is certainly not a time for war, has shaken the international system. It is the first land war in Europe in perhaps 70 years, and it has become a proxy war between the US and the West on one side and Russia on the other, even though the actual fighting has been done by Ukrainians and Russians. It has also led to huge economic consequences. It has restricted energy supply chains, whether it is crude oil or whether it is food grains and fertilizers. There is a shortage across the world. Prices have shot up. Inflation is very high. Such a situation, countries are looking at the Ukraine crisis from the different vantage positions. Obviously, the countries of the West see this as an invasion of a sovereign country by Russia and want to prioritize that aspect of Russia's behavior, while countries of the global South, while not defending Russia's invasion and recognizing that what Russia did was a breach of peace and sovereignty, countries of the global South, including India, would also like an equal focus and equal prioritization on the economic consequences of this war and of the sanctions, including oil prices and more broadly energy prices, as well as food inflation. Yeah, so these are the two sort of different approaches on which there will be debate and discussion at the G20 meeting. Whether it leads to a consensus or not is difficult to say. The hope is always there.
Mr. Malik, you mentioned about the disruption of food supply chain during the Russia-Ukraine war. How do you think G20 nations will address the issue? Plus, how India could play a bigger role in this to develop and establish a cooperation for development among the countries?
I think India would like greater sensitivity vis-a-vis countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America especially, who have been affected by the economic consequences of the war. Some of these countries are already reeling under economic pressures due to the pandemic, due to a debt crisis caused by infrastructure spending, including Chinese infrastructure projects. So on top of that, there has now been problem of food inflation and energy inflation. So India would certainly like a focus on this issue. If you remember, before the G20 meeting, India called a virtual meeting of global South countries to take their message to the G20. India sees itself as a bridge between the global South and the G20. And it would certainly like G20 to contribute to the well-being of the global South nations as well. And that would certainly be India's approach in this meeting.
And Mr. Malik, counter-terrorism steps have become a major concern for the G20 nations. So how are they planning to tackle these new and emerging threats? Plus, what is likely to be discussed about this in the foreign ministers meeting?
Terrorism in our part of the world has certainly become even more of a challenge after August 2021, when there was a regime change in Kabul and the Taliban took over, because Afghanistan has now become a sanctuary for a whole range of bad actors who had earlier been subdued. That apart, in time of such economic flux, terror financing, sources of terror financing, including through the opium trade, the drug trade, new technologies such as cryptocurrency, have all got a significant boost. So these are certainly issues on which India would like to focus attention, as it has in the recent past, on the sources that sustain terrorism, both politically or financially, and hope for a consensual approach from the world to address this.
And as we know that G20 is an intergovernmental forum of world's major developed and developing economies and industry thrive on skilled and talented human resources. So, is there any plan of global skill mapping and talent pool in the foreign ministers meeting, Mr. Malik?
Well, I don't think detailed plan can be worked out at this meeting, but there will be a broad conversation, I understand, because as global supply chains are being reordered and, redistributed, there will also be a need for the skill map of the world to be redrawn, because where supply chains go, skills will also be needed. That apart, you are dealing with a strange demography today. Developing countries such as India and other countries in Asia still have a relatively young population, while developed countries in the West especially have a much older population. So there are specific gaps that are emerging in specific countries. I will give you one example. If you look at Japan, which has an aging population, there is a great demand there for healthcare workers, nurses, medical workers, and so on. India has signed a bilateral agreement with Japan to train health workers, nurses, and medical personnel in India, specifically for deployment as workers in this area in Japan. So they are being taught and given courses in a manner that equips them to start working in Japan from the day they land there, and also being taught the Japanese language. So this is just one example. There can be numerous such examples for both India and for other countries, other developing countries across the world. And I think India would like to share these examples and ideas at the G20 meeting.
And with your insightful inputs, we can conclude this session. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on emerging global challenges and international matters. Thank you so much, Mr. Malik, for joining All India Radio.
Thank you.